Hello. Are you tired of living with your mother-in-law? Sick of walking up those 3 flights of apartment stairs? Maybe you're sick of the person above you that sounds like they're going to come through the floor. Well, this podcast is for you.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Liz.
And this is
Happy Hour Home-demic. Yay! That was not our best clank.
That's a gentle clank. Ooh.
Look out, 'cause here we go. Get ready, we're about to flow. Alright.
Cut, your eyelashes falling off.
Dang it!
Hello, stranger.
All right, so
First time home buyers.
talk the first time home buyers.
FTHB. I'm literally going to teach an acronym every episode.
You're really holding on to that acronym, aren't you?
FTHB. First time home buyers come to me. Ah, see, that was good.
It's actually a cheerleading
Right?
thing.
But I made that up on the fly.
I'm so proud of you.
I think that should be our cheer. We should just go out on the side of the road and do that.
Okay. So, what is a first-time home buyer, you might ask?
Anyone who has not owned property in the last 3 years.
So, you can be a first-time home buyer again after the 3-year mark.
It's the only time you can be a first something again in any situation.
I feel like there's probably other situations.
Don't ruin this for me.
Okay. So, first-time home buyers.
Yep.
5 misconceptions of first-time home buyers.
We're going to do another countdown.
I won't do the countdown. I'll just say it, okay?
That works.
Number 1 is you don't have to have.
You just did a number.
But I didn't do the one.
You just said a number.
But I didn't do like the 1, the 2, the uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis.
Might be more fun.
All right, so first-time home buyer, 5 misconceptions. Number 1 is you really are horrible at that. You do not have to have a 20% down payment. So what does that mean?
You might not even need any down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of programs out there that don't require one.
And just because it's like 100% financing or a down payment assistance program doesn't mean it's harder to get.
Right.
I think that's another thing. A lot of people go, well, I saw this, but I didn't qualify.
Right.
Then I feel like there's always more questions.
Right. So that's why you just have to, you don't really have to know what questions to ask. You just have to tell us, we'll ask you, but know that you have options as a first-time home buyer. There are programs out there.
Yeah.
So programs can start at 100%, or you can do as low as 3% or 3.5%, depending on which program it is. So there are a lot of smaller programs in there.
And there are down payment assistance programs for conventional. We're seeing a lot more options for that now, whereas before it would just be FHA,
Right.
FHA, a government-backed loan. I think that's opened the door for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you don't have to necessarily do FHA or a government program, and you might not even need a down payment assistance program if you have the option of
A gift. So, cool thing about a gift is depending on the program kind of is dependent on who can give you a gift.
That's true.
So that's definitely a case-by-case scenario. Obviously, if you have a family member that's willing to gift you, that's fine. But Aunt Sally cannot hand you $10,000 from her sock drawer.
Oh my gosh, and you can't use cash, guys. Please just put
That's
it.
what I was talking about, cash from the sock drawer.
Put it in the bank.
We're going to talk about that later. You're
Okay.
jumping ahead. You're
Sorry.
jumping way ahead of the misconceptions.
I have some PTSD from it because I just had that happen.
Yeah. Well, Aunt Sally cannot give you $10,000 cash. There's a whole paper trail that has to go into play. So I always tell people, if that's your plan, you want to talk about it up front, let's get Aunt Sally's okay before you say, oh, Aunt Sally's going to give me a gift. Because Aunt Sally might not be cool with providing a bank statement.
Every single
providing a copy
time.
of her check.
Every
depending
single
on the
time.
program.
Every single time.
Yep. So, all right. Number 2.
No, we're not doing a countdown.
They have to know when we're starting the next misconception.
Why don't you just say bullet point or something? We did a countdown last week and it was...
Number 2, buyer misconception. The buyer does not pay the realtor fees in most situations. So I get asked a lot, who pays the realtor's fees? So in most typical real estate transactions, the seller pays both sides commission. Now there have been case-by-case basis where maybe the commission was cut on one side and so the buyer will make up the difference.
Or as a first time, or not first time, for sale by owner.
Right. for sale.
FSBO, FSBO.
Jeez. Or a FSBO, as Liz.
Acronym number, DOSE.
Oh gosh.
That's my countdown.
Okay. So number 3. Number 3 is you do not have to have 2 years employment out of college
Yeah.
to get a loan.
Right, because
So what does that mean?
here's the thing is if you were full-time in college, we can use those school transcripts to show as an employment history. So let's say you went to medical school and you're out doing your residency and pounding the pavement and you've already got your income coming in and you need a place to live. You don't have to stay in an apartment. We can show that you have this job now and then show that you've been in school to train for that job to supplement the 2 years. So there's ways around a lot of that. Now, not if you're commissioned and you just started. You have to have
What does that
2
mean?
years.
Commission. Are you 1099? Mm-hmm. You can be commissioned in W-2.
Right.
That will not work. So when we say W-2, meaning hourly or salary, it works in those scenarios.
So if you're self-employed or you have,
a contract
Yes.
where you're 1099 or you're commission only W-2, those scenarios will still need 2 years regardless in that line of work to be able to use
which
it.
that happened with me and Andy. And he had just gotten out of all of his certification school. He did a trade school and had started, and pretty much everybody in that field that he works in are contracts.
Right.
They just renew them. However, he just started. So it was one of those situations where like, we can't use this income at all. And luckily, yours truly,
Wizard.
Mama Moneybags took care of the whole deal.
Number 4. So a lot of buyers don't realize what's rolled into their payment.
Right.
So your payment is just not your mortgage payment. It is taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance if it applies. So
Not just your PITI. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
okay, good job. If I could give you stickers right now, I
Acronym
would.
number 3.
That would be 6 because you.
It's a double 3. They're separated.
Might want to come to me for all your adding and calculation needs.
Ruthless, man.
So taxes and insurance.
Not sharing my cheer with you.
I have my own share. Taxes and insurance.
Please share your own cheer.
I don't know what it is yet, but I will have one soon. Just wait. Just you wait.
With
The
you.
anticipation will kill all of you.
Patient.
So, taxes and insurance, if you don't put 20% down, you have to have tax and insurance rolled into your payment. So, when I ask people what your budget is, I say including everything. So, taxes, insurance, mortgage insurance,
Yes.
the whole shebang, because it's
It's not fair to be like,
No, but I've had people ask me, like,
know.
I don't think there's a lot of knowledge on that. So your taxes and your insurance every month, some of it goes into what's called an escrow account, and it's paid out every year when it comes due. So when taxes come due, you've already got enough in there to pay it out, and when insurance comes due, you've already got enough in there to pay it out. So unless you put 20% down, you cannot waive an escrow account. You have to have one.
yeah.
So
Is that true on every
I
program?
feel like FHA requires it no matter what.
I think so too. That's what I was. That's what I was
I think
asking
it more
for.
so applies to a conventional product.
Conventional, you can.
But most of the time, you're only going to have a conventional product, and there are scenarios with FHA that you put 20%
Right.
down, but not the majority of your.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so speaking of the differences between programs, for all programs, do you have to have the 3 trade lines on credit?
and that's misconception number 5. Sorry, she tried to cut us off, and we would have lost count. So that's probably really loud on the mic.
It is, so I did it.
So 12 months, 3 trade lines,
Right.
only required on 2 programs, THGA, which is a grant program, and USDA, which is 100% financing. So what does that mean as far as what trade lines you do need? Like, so,
Right. 'Cause that's important. There are differences in trade lines.
right. So like, if you are a lot of new buyers out there are only going to have maybe a secured credit card, maybe they have deferred student loans.
Possibly a car, depending.
or maybe their parents added them as an authorized user.
Yes.
So which ones can you not use?
Authorized users, like,
And no deferred student loans. So if that's all you have on your credit is authorized user and deferred student loans, can't use it. You have to have something that's your own to prove that you can pay. All right, so that finishes our misconceptions. So now you might ask, well, Liz, what if I can't qualify for enough by myself, but I have a parent or a grandparent or a brother or somebody I live with that wants
how many
to
people live with you?
co-sign? Well, grandma doesn't have to live with you.
Okay.
So what if I have someone that's willing to co-sign? Then what? What does that look like?
So the thing is with co-signing is you've got to have somebody that qualifies on their own technically. Maybe not debt to income wise, because that's where you're looking for the help. Because no matter what, whoever's the lower credit score, that's what we have to go by. However, it strengthens the file. So let's say you're a first-time homebuyer, you're out of college, you're the doctor doing your residency. See how I did that? Bring that right back around.
Good job.
And mom says, I know you're doing great at Grey's Anatomy Hospital, but we're gonna need to get you a house. And maybe your credit's like, you've got a ton of student loans, they're all deferred. And she says, you know what, I'll help you out. So let's say your credit is like 680-ish, you know, like fair. But mom comes in and she's like, look at me with my 800. It strengthens your file, your loan. When we run it through, it says, okay, that's kind of taking care of one of the risks. Because I always
Right.
tell people what we do is we're weighing the risks of you
Right.
being a borrower.
And some strengthen
Yes.
those risks and
And
kind of
some-
offset them, and some make them worse. So adding someone with a high debt load
Yeah.
and a low credit might not necessarily work. Sometimes it does. Adding a second borrower sometimes does help.
Yes.
But it's really kind of a scenario based. So
Right.
what does that mean for someone who is a really low credit score and doesn't qualify by themselves? That means a cosigner won't help you.
Right.
You have to be able to credit qualify, meaning you have to have a high enough score to be on the loan by yourself. There's some interesting characters around these parts.
Yeah. Didn't know Billy Bob Thornton was going to drive by. That's probably really loud. We just add that to the movies that Sarah has never watched.
I don't know what movie that is. I feel like I have a running total at this
You
point
do.
of movies
It's
that
like
I've
a
never
joke
watched.
now. It's like we make these really fun clips and you kind of do this like you glaze over it. I'm like, she's never seen that. What are
So
the things?
for years, my husband was like, I had seen parts of Forrest Gump, but not all of Forrest Gump. And
Whoa.
okay,
Wait, what?
back up all the haters.
Wait. You've never watched Forrest Gump
The
from beginning
full-
to end?
No, I have now because believe me, every time, ever since my husband knew that, every time it came on TV, he'd be like, oh my gosh, Forrest Gump's on, we have to watch it. I'm like, Jacob, I have seen it 17 times now because every time it comes on, we have to watch it.
so good.
It's great, but I got
you're
so
not
much
even
flack for that.
American if you've not watched it. So when did you become an American citizen?
I don't remember. I blocked it out
Most people remember that. It's a pretty iconic moment in their life.
when I was born.
Glad this didn't happen on the 4th of July episode.
So I'm over
What's
it.
a famous quote from them?
Oh, Lieutenant Dan and his, okay, this is really funny too. When he jumps off the boat, for the longest time, I think I blacked out that he did not die. And I was like, it was so sad. I was telling literally him one day, this is like after my 3rd time watching it. I must have blacked out. I'm like, oh, it's so sad when Lieutenant Dan dies. And he was like, Sarah, he didn't die.
He didn't die.
And so now I think because I didn't pay enough attention, he's making me watch it even
Okay,
more.
you just deflected. What's a famous quote from that movie? And it's not
Run, Forrest, run!
Okay, that was stupid. I mean, Jenny was like, pays and cares.
Went.
Something just jumped right up and bit me right in the buttock. Now you have a lot, so you can pull those out.
Thank
at
you
parties.
for all of that. So let's get back to what we're actually like recording here, which is not about Forrest Gump. So that brings us to
Okay, question.
what?
So if you don't necessarily need a down payment, let's say you've got somebody helping you with a gift or they're co-signing, then what costs can you expect from buying a home?
Good question, Elizabeth. Let me just answer that for you right now. So you need what's called earnest money.
Yep.
What's earnest money, you might ask? Earnest money is a deposit that you put down. It goes to the realtor's office. They hold it in escrow. and it gets credited back on your loan. So you put $1,000 down.
Yes.
And maybe your down payment's $0. Then you get that $1,000 back at closing. It just is like a good faith to the seller. If for some reason you do not fulfill your part of the contract, they can keep that earnest money.
And side note, that does not mean if your lending falls through or your inspection is bad or any kind of reasons that aren't your fault that
Within the timelines.
Right, that you don't get your earnest money back.
So there's contingencies to protect you, and that's why it's important to have a realtor, because they kind of keep you within those timelines. So you're also going to be responsible for an appraisal most of the time up front, which can run, it really depends on the property, so I'm not even going to name anything because it's...
Well, in a year from now, it could be 2 days. We just don't know. I mean...
No, I'm talking about the cost.
Oh,
Because,
good luck to you.
Like, hello.
There's people out in California paying like $1,500 for a normal...
It really depends on, I think as the market shifts, we're going to see those numbers kind of go back down to a normal amount, but I don't really feel comfortable spouting out a figure.
Because it's changing, honestly, it changes per deal, per property, just like you said. The appraiser will come back and say, okay, cool, I'll do that for X amount of dollars. And we're kind of at their mercy.
Right. So I guess on that aspect, it really depends on your price point. So that's where I can kind of give you an idea. So say you're at a $200,000 house, no acreage, nothing funky about the house. I would say anywhere between 5 and 7 is what you can expect, just depending on the area and the property. Then you have a termite inspection. Those run about $50 depending on. You definitely want a termite inspection. Do not skip on that because...
No, because you never know.
I mean, you just don't. Those things are...
You can go in the house and be like, this is absolutely stunning, and they never protected
pop up
it
until later, and
then all of a sudden it's like
your ceiling's falling in, and
the foundation has been completely eaten.
Right. And then what do?
You're stuck.
Yeah. So that's super important. Do not skip on the $50. Last, home inspection, super, super important.
Well, also, if they're a good one, look for termites.
Yes. If there's any signs of termites, they can normally, there's certain things they look for when they're doing the home inspection. So what's a home inspection? It is going to give you a very detailed, long list of all the things wrong with the property. There could be a tiny nick in the wall, and they're going to point that out.
That's their job.
1,000-page report.
They're not trying to scare you, but every house...
Educate you, more so.
Every house is going to have things that are wrong. New construction. That's a lot of people will skip inspection on new construction. Do not do that. We have seen some horror stories.
Yeah.
The guy that did the inspection that needed to pull they just needed an extension hose on the HVAC for the drainage, and they didn't do it. You want to know what happened to his house?
Flooded. What does that mean?
The water went right down the middle underneath and eroded the foundation. The entire house has cracked in half.
That's a big problem.
From something really tiny.
That could have
like
been
a $5 pipe at Home Depot.
And I think the misconception on new construction is that you're getting this brand new beautiful house. There's nothing wrong with it. It's funny because being in this business, I would have thought the same thing. I would have been like, oh, new construction, you're getting brand new everything. Like it's top of the line. You can look at $1 million houses, and if you look close enough, you will find as many flaws as you can, because it's like anything else.
Well, and especially, and I'm a big proponent of, there's a reason those old houses are still standing like they are.
The work is different. I feel like
the work was totally different. And even from an insurance perspective, I learned this when we had an old house, because I have a real big heart for old houses and fixer-uppers that I shouldn't. And the insurance was more expensive on... was more expensive on the old house because it was going to take more money to rebuild it at the value and the materials that they used versus a newer home, which really threw me. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It was built so well that it's more expensive to replace it at the same level.
So the moral of this part of the podcast is...
I don't want to do the moral until the end. I want to talk about the fun stuff, like shopping for the house. Like, as a first-time home buyer, that's one of the most fun things.
Okay, so let's talk about our experiences as first-time home buyers when we bought.
Okay.
Now, you bought more houses than me, so let's talk about your last one, because I remember when you bought that
the Dr. Seuss house?
So I'll never forget when I first met Liz at our last company, and she was shopping for a home, and I was like, ooh, let me see what you're looking at. And she shows me this house, and she's like, it's like a little doll house. And she's like, I'm gonna do, she had all of these things she's going to do. She's like, I'm going to do this, and this. I'm like,
We did a lot of it.
you did, but however, she was like the HGTV home happy, like I'm going to do all these things myself, and
Most fun is knocking the walls out of a bathroom with a sledgehammer. Oh, so therapeutic.
yeah.
Yeah.
But how did that work out for you?
I was very tired.
So how many houses have you owned?
Okay, hold on.
Oh gosh, there's that many? Lord have mercy.
We're in our 4th.
Okay.
Okay, so not that many. We bought a house when we got married. Then we sold that when Andy joined the Marines. We moved to North Carolina. When we got stationed, we bought a house in Hubert. And then we bought the Dr. Seuss house. And then now we're in our dream house with my garden. I am a horrible emotional buyer, and I'm very aware of it. However, I am one of the first people in my family to own my home. And so it was an emotional thing for me that I couldn't detach. And I'm very much this could be a good resale. However, it's more of, I can see us having Christmas here. I can see myself making dinners here. I can see us sitting at the table eating dinner. And so I love the charm and the character of old houses. Always have. You could take me to an old house and I don't care if you're like, it needs all new plumbing, all new electrical, the floor's falling in, the roof needs, I'm like, okay, I'll take care of it. Cause I'm like literally like it's the underdog. It's like, I have to take care of this home and preserve it. But that gets exhausting.
So
So fun.
emotion's great.
Yeah.
But logic.
Logic's a lot better, and we've done all the mistakes. I will say that. Now the house that we're in is a little of both. I think we finally kind of met in the middle. Like I was like, yes, this house, and we're making it our own, but it has good bones. It's in a great location. The resale value will be fine. So it's one of those that we finally kind of met in the middle.
Yeah. So I think that's important for first-time home buyers. Like, it's good to have a checklist of kind of what you're looking for, but also being realistic. Like, you're not, like, if your budget's $250,000, just know that you're not going to get, like, probably your swimming pool and an updated bathroom, an updated kitchen, and, no carpet. I mean, unless you buy, like, a more expensive new construction.
Right.
So I think you have to be realistic about that. And that's why it's good to have a realtor that will kind of, like, put you back in reality.
Yeah.
Like, hey, those are all great things, but if you want that, here's
the price point.
Right.
And it's probably going to sticker shock you. And that's just the truth of it. If, that's why they do that on some of those shows.
I was about to say, when they take you in the,
Yes.
like, they're like, okay, for your needs, it's going to be, like, they take you in this beautiful
and
house.
you fall in love with it and you're like, this is perfect.
And they're like, guess how much it is? And it's like 1.5 and their budget's like 6. And they're like, oh.
And it's just like ripping the...
Bring it back.
I think it's smart because...
I do too.
Especially with first-time home buyers, you don't know kind of what to expect. And I always say, go into it and say, give your checklist to your realtor and say, here, these 2 or 3 are absolutely diehard have-to-haves.
Yes.
And so if you go into a house and it's got the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, and it's in the location you want, but it's missing your fireplace...
Maybe that's something you do down
Add
the road.
a fireplace later.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if it's got everything, but you need a fenced in yard, maybe fence the yard
Fence the
in.
yard.
I think that it's a give and take. And I think a lot of first time home buyers go into it and they're like, oh, I'm not going to spend that money and not get what I want.
Right.
But the reality is, like, my first home was not our dream home.
Right.
Like, there was a lot of things that needed work, and we looked at a lot of houses before we got that one.
And you guys did a lot of work on yours too.
We did, yeah. We remodeled our master bath. We created a pool house. Like, we did a lot of stuff to, like, up the value. But we kind of went into it. Like, I'm an emotional buyer too, and Jacob's a logical buyer. So he was kind of like, we kind of both met in the middle on that
Meanwhile,
one.
mine's like, whatever, don't care.
Right. So I think that it's just important to have, if you don't have, like, a spouse or a partner or somebody you're buying with, that can kind of be your logic, maybe
Yes.
to offset your emotion. That's where the realtor can come in and say, hey, like, those are all great things, but let's trim it down.
And that's why it's important to know who you're picking as your realtor. Same thing with lenders. Like I always say, do your research.
Yeah.
It's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there. Just take a few seconds, Google them, check out their reviews, see if they're a good fit for you.
Yeah. And you really should like them, because you're going to spend a lot of time
Well, and
with
you
them.
need to be able to trust them. So like if
Yes.
you do go into a house and if you walk in the door and they go, no, you know, there's something that they're seeing because of experience that they're like,
Right.
you know, that's what you need. You need
Right.
that trust in that relationship.
Right. So the moral of the story is that if you're a first-time home buyer, don't be discouraged. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things out there to help you. Get with a lender who knows what they're doing. Now you kind of know some things to look for. If the lender doesn't ask you those questions, you should be educated as a buyer going in.
Right.
So educate yourself. Start making a budget of what you can afford with taxes and insurance. And then make a checklist of what you want in that house. Make sure that you have the funds for your upfront costs.
Right.
And then you start shopping.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's
it's
easy as
as easy as that. And I think the most important thing to me is don't be house poor.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. I've done it. I've literally feel like I'm sitting on this couch as the one that's made all of the horrible home buying mistakes before I got into this industry. Because we did. I mean, and I loved the house, but it's fantastic because that's all we did was sit in the house.
Right. Yeah.
So
And that's why it's good to do budgets. Make your budget and then you work your budget around your wants.
Yes.
And you kind of see what's out there. And sometimes I always tell people, they're like, I don't know where to start budget wise. Like, I don't even know, maybe they have a lot of wiggle room in their budget and they don't even know where to start. Get online and look at some houses online and just kind of see what's out there in different price ranges. And then we can run numbers on them to see what that budget might look like. So move out of your in-laws house. Don't walk up those 3 flights of stairs anymore.
don't live under an elephant.
An elephant. Don't live under an elephant. Those are all good reasons to start looking for a house.
Yeah.
Those 3 are like top 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
It's not that scary. It's not that
It's not.
scary. Actually, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
love it.
it's fun.
I live
sure.
vicariously through my peeps.
Yep. We love it. We get to buy houses like every day, basically.
Yep.
So awesome. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hello, stranger.